Hello, and thank you again for joining me either live or in the replay of Cash Practice Training Tuesdays. So today we are going to discuss how to use and how to not use injury prevention style services, screens, etc. Because if they're used right, they can be huge money makers. But the way that I see most practice owners attempting to use them, it's a huge waste of time. And your time and efforts and energy and sometimes money would be much, much better spent focusing on other types of screens or services. So, first, let's talk about how people or practice owners are misusing injury prevention screens and workshops and things like that. So this obviously, all of these Cash Practice Training Tuesday topics, they come up from things I discussed with my Cash Practice Mastermind earlier today. And one of my members was talking about how he had gained some kind of inroads and relationships with some local gyms. And now he's doing kind of a monthly injury prevention screen at these gyms. So people kind of sign up and come meet him at those times. And there was, kind of the complaint that it's taken a while to kind of build up a decent amount of people, meeting him for those screens. They're 15, 20 minutes long. And that also the conversion rates are not super high, not where he'd want them. And so I just explained, first and foremost that, one of the problems is that we're human and humans don't typically, there's a small percentage of population that will, really, really put a focus on prevention. But for the most part, most people, unless they have an injury or pain that's limiting them from doing what they want to be doing, then they're not going to act and actually attend one of these things, whether paid or free. And if they do show up, if they're one of that small percentage of the population that are into that kind of thing, if they do show up, the chance of them actually converting to a paid customer, if you're doing these as free screens, is even lower, right? If you do find a few things that might be sped along or improved with some manual therapy or, a good home program or some on-site Therex, the chance that a person like that in that situation without any pain or injury is going to convert and say, yeah, I'll pay for these sessions versus someone who's already limited by pain or injury. I mean, there's just no comparison, right? And so the take-home point is not to use or offer injury prevention screens, right? That are just kind of given on an ongoing basis, not attached to any kind of season, upcoming, race or, competition or anything like that. And I'll talk more about that because that is one way you can use these. And we've used them really, really well in our practice. But if it's just an ongoing thing, you're showing up at a gym or you're having people come in and doing free injury prevention screens, you're going to be disappointed by the amount of people you get. And there will be those out there that hear this and they say, that's nonsense. I get people coming in for injury prevention screens all the time. It's a great lead generator, or it's a good service that I, charge for. And I'm not saying that it doesn't make anyone any money if you're doing it in that way, just as an ongoing service or an ongoing lead generator. What I'm saying is, compared to focusing on things that people who already know they need your services or need help in some form, there's no comparison. And you will have a lot higher level of success and greater return on your time and investment of your energy and money by focusing on providing lead generating services or just free screens or actual paid services that are focused on people that actually know they need your service because they're in pain and it's limiting them already. So let's talk a little bit more about, how we've used those in my practice that actually have been huge return on investment. Because ultimately what we want, really, I just, with my mastermind member today, I said, let's just start by changing the name of what you're doing. Because he admitted that even though they're called injury prevention screens, and that's what the gyms are kind of marketing them as, most of the people that are showing up were injured. They weren't there to be, preventing anything. They're like, yeah, this hurts. And I saw, the word injury, I saw you're a physical therapist and you're doing these free screens. I'd like for you to look at it. So that just reinforced the fact that, what we're really trying to attract, or we're going to attract, is someone that actually already knows they need our services. So the ways that we have done this, there's kind of three different ways: seasonal or preseason promotions. can work really well if you're offering something injury prevention based. So for instance, the last few years, what we've done at my practice is in December, leading up to January, we'll do a few teaser emails and then and let them know that we're going to be, as of January 1 and through that month, we're going to be doing hugely discounted injury prevention. Actually, we call them injury risk assessments, right? It's not just injury prevention, it's injury risk assessments. And essentially they're 50% off our normal hourly rate. So we still, I cover all my costs for sure, pay the therapist who's doing them. And what we did last January, if I remember correctly, we ended up with, I think, 6 people that came in, that wouldn't have come in otherwise. And I think 2 or 3 of them ended up converting into getting some paid sessions beyond that to address what was found in the assessment. So not bad, because if we hadn't it was literally just setting up, I think it was maybe 5 total emails from mid-December to end of January. And that's, people that wouldn't have come in otherwise. And it ended up being, well over $1,000 of revenue that we wouldn't have had. And it was just a matter of setting up those emails. And now it's just, these years, as years go by, I just wash, rinse, repeat. I just restart that same campaign, change the year and the emails, and there you go. So that's one example of, when you can utilize injury prevention services in a way that is a really good return on investment. Doesn't take a ton of your time necessarily. Once you set up some email campaigns, some social media, posts, you can kind of just put it on repeat each year. Another example would be what we've done in the past is when we were really heavy in the running niche, we would always do kind of the beginning of marathon training season for, really it was twice a year, but primarily it was that season that led up to the marathon in our city in Austin, Texas. In the fall, there'd be that big marathon training kickoff, and we would offer a time limited discounted injury prevention screen. So in our case, we use them. What we did one time, we did them as free injury screens. We actually got more signups when we charged $75 for them. Which doesn't surprise me actually, but just a little more information for you guys out there is that consider testing. Do I get more signups when it's completely free versus when I actually charge something for it? And when you do charge something for it, you've got a more qualified lead, so to speak, that if you do find something that needs treatment, then they're much more likely. They're already taking their pocketbook out. They're already saying like, I'm willing to pay for these services. They're going to be much more likely to convert to a paying customer than if you're just, jamming up the clinic with a bunch of people looking for freebies. So consider charging versus going free. Let's say you're in the CrossFit niche, when that people are they're going to be ramping up their training to train for, to get to regionals or to get to nationals. That would be a perfect time to do a big injury prevention promotion for, all the gyms in your area or the ones that you're connected with. So those are just some ideas of how, season or preseason based injury prevention promotions can work really well. Have worked really well for our practice, and definitely some of my students as well. So then you've got like, the people that are using injury prevention screens with teams, youth sports associations, things like that. They're probably the ones that earlier in this video threw their hand up and it's like, no way, I get a ton of business out of these. And you can. So for brand building purposes and getting in front of, a lot of youth athletes, their coaches and their parents, this is a great thing, I think, to offer at a cheap or free, basis to preseason come in and say, all right, look, we're going to run everything through. And there are softwares that can help you with this. I know, now a Move to Perform is a software. There are others that utilize the functional movement screen, FMS, and, basically have a way where you can just, print out and hand that athlete and their parents, these are the things we found. These are the things that need work. And it's a way to say, look, you're at risk in this area. We really should address this now before, a potential injury occurs. Let me get out my schedule and let's make it happen. So it's a great way in the moment to, at the beginning of the season, help athletes in a big way to prevent injuries, but also get in front of a large amount of athletes and build rapport with the team, because injuries are going to happen, right? Even with those screens, even if you've done everything right, people swipe through the knee. I mean, there's no amount of, abductor exercises it's going to take 200-pound person going sideways through your knee, right? So injuries happen. And when you have been there from the beginning, to help people out and help, and to stay in front of their, to build your brand and stay in front of those athletes and their coaches, who are they going to think of when injuries do happen, right? So it's another great way to use injury prevention type services. And then finally, another one that worked really, really well for my practice early on was a train the trainer type of setup. So I'd get in front of personal trainer groups at gyms, and I would teach them. It was kind of my version of a functional movement screen. Back then, I don't even know if FMS was around. I can't remember. I've never gone through FMS, and I hear great things about it. But we all understand functional movements as therapists, and it's not hard to put something like that together without going through an FMS or similar CEU course. And so I just taught them how to run their new or established clients through a quick 5-minute, do these 5 different movements. These are the things you're looking for. These are the things that you could address easily with just, pure exercise. And these are what you might, consider. These are the things that should raise a red flag and tell you that probably, a skilled physical therapist, licensed, PT would help to, completely get rid of, or as completely as possible, get rid of that injury. And when you're selling those things, right, as with everything, you're selling the end results and you're answering the question, what's in it for them, right? If you go in there and say, I just want, I want to teach your trainers a functional movement screen or something like that, and you don't have a statement like, so that their clients get injured less and fall off of their schedule and stop paying them less, right? That's the key. Really, you have to answer what is in it for them, right? Same thing when you're selling, a seasonality, a seasonal based promo. In my emails for people who are, our current and past clients that we're trying to get to come back in and do these movement screens, these injury prevention assessments or injury risk assessments. I'm not talking much about functional movement and, that kind of stuff. I'm talking about, 2020 goals. What are your New Year's goals? If it has something to do with fitness, I'll tell you what, we see injuries from people that maybe stopped working out earlier the previous year. They're going to get back in shape, or they want to get back in shape. And those wonderful weight loss and fitness goals just fall by the wayside because they got hurt in a way that we would have easily been able to identify in one of these screens. Don't let that happen to you. Make sure you meet your goals in 2020, that you're healthy, that you lose that weight, etc. You're talking about the end results. That's how you're selling these things. And if right now I'm on a special little software. I'm not sure if I'm seeing in the comments, but if any of this is resonating with you, just so I can see if there's any comments, say yes, give me a comment or two, maybe a few thumbs up, because I have not seen anything come through, but it might just be that most people are going to watch this in the replay. And I also just want to make sure that my software here is working. So anyhow, those are the ways that you're selling what you're providing. Those are the ways that have worked really, really well for my practice and many others. And at the beginning, if you're just joining live now, make sure you watch the beginning, because the way that most practice owners and their staff, they're having their staff utilize injury prevention screens as a lead generator or paid service, they would be far, far better, use of time to focus on leads and lead generating of people who are already in pain. Okay, so make sure it's seasonal based or brand building with an association or a team or a community of some sort, or maybe you're teaching trainers how to use, how to do screens and building those relationships so that when people do get hurt, they send them to you to get them back on their schedule as quickly as possible. So any questions at all on this topic, please do leave them in the comments. Now I see that we did get a few likes, so that's good. I'm glad that this software is working. We might stick with this one. We've had some tech difficulties with the few we've tried. But anyhow, if you appreciate this information at all, please let me know in the comments. And if you would like this, someone like me to go through topics like this, to answer your questions live every single week, then do consider the Cash-Based Practice Mastermind. You can check it out at drjarodcarter.com/mastermind. Thanks so much, and we'll see you guys next week.